And a cold dose of reality to all the people that for some reason thought we were going to get a She-Hulk season 2, as if that was ever going to happen. We were never going to get a goddamn She-Hulk season 2, but it's all been but confirmed, despite Kevin Feige fully backing the creative minds behind the first season of She-Hulk. But we all know actions speak louder than words. And recently we heard it from the mouth of the star of the show itself, Tatiana Maslany, who, if you remember, did decide to join in on the fan bashing that was going around from the creative minds of She-Hulk. And the reason that she gives for why we're not getting She-Hulk season 2 is absolutely hilarious. It's bullshit. It's basically an enormous piece of fan fiction. We all know the real reason it happened, but bad news, She-Hulk fans. It doesn't look like the Marvel show will be back for a second season, with Loki season 2 having just aired, Moon Knight's next chapter officially on the way. Jennifer Walters enthusiasts were keen for more green, hopeful even. During a recent appearance on the Nerd Incorrect Twitch stream, actress Tatiana Maslany had a candid reply to the host asking whether there are more episodes to come. I don't think so. I think we blew our budget, she joked. And Disney was like, no thanks. While Marvel has never disclosed the exact figures, She-Hulk's budget is estimated to have been around $225 million. You spent $225 million to tell your fans that you hate them? Like, what an enormously smart allocation of resources. $225 million for absolute crap. That's what you spent on that one. And I imagine, yes, the show costs too much. $225 million for 9 episodes of a streaming show with not very much superheroing in it does seem a tad bit excessive. But I believe, from what we've heard, every single show that Disney Plus has produced in the MCU has been a tad bit expensive. Yet we do have a season 2 of Loki, and we have another season of Moon Knight on the way. We have a sequel to Falcon and the Winter Soldier called Captain America Brave New World, which I imagine cost even more than the show. So they are greenlighting sequels to things that were too expensive, but they are not greenlighting a sequel to She-Hulk. I wonder why that is. I wonder if it could be that Marvel fans hated the show. I wonder if it could be that the creative minds behind She-Hulk, including the writer's room, that has 2 Marvel Comics writers in it that I know of, Zeb Wells and Cody Ziegler, basically went out there and told Marvel fans, we hate you. We don't like you, and this is what we want to say about you. And the fact that Kevin Feige ever greenlit a show that basically went out there to troll his own fans was just the most mind-numbingly stupid idea in the history of the world. I just wonder why people have no confidence in the MCU. I wonder why the appetite for the MCU is not as strong as it was even 2 or 3 years ago. I wonder, could it be crap like She-Hulk and people like Jessica Gao going out there and telling people, yes, we made the show to tell you that we hate you because we don't want you to come back. Don't believe me? This is what showrunner for Jessica Gao had to say to Variety in 2022. Our writer's room opened 3 years ago. The fact that we were able to predict what the reaction was going to be, what a lot of the trolling comments were going to be, really shows how very tired and unoriginal these trolls are. That really tickled me because the little troll that lives inside of me really loves trolling the trolls. I guess she's the inception of trolling people or whatever. But let's go back to 3 years before 2022. What had just happened? Captain Marvel, the first movie starring a female superhero, first solo one, made over $1 billion. Yet they wanted to tell the fans that they hated them, even though they supported en masse a movie starring a female superhero. Now, people don't really like Brie Larson, and I will say the placement of that film right between Infinity War and Endgame and saying that it was necessary to watch certainly helped out the box office. But people were supporting female superheroes. Before that, we had Pepper Potts, who everyone liked, who basically got to become Iron Man at one point. What else did we get? We got Peggy Carter, that a lot of people like just as much as Steve Rogers. She got her own TV show as a solo character. We had Scarlet Witch that everyone loved. We had Gamora that everyone loved. And we had Black Widow that everyone loved. They were female heroes out there that the entire toxic fandom seemed to support. But Jessica Gao could just predict in 2022, it was all going to turn and we were all going to become assholes and istophobes in the meantime and just turn on this character only because she was a woman. It had nothing to do. They actually went out there on purpose, according to the showrunner, to troll the fans themselves. They basically poisoned their own fan base by telling them that they hated them. The idea that the show was so expensive that we could never get a second season is very laughable on the face of itself, as if Disney is capable of making sound financial decisions based on the budgets of shows and movies as of late. Everything's been too expensive for like 6 years now. Yet, they decided not to go along with She-Hulk because of the budget, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And, hey, I love fan fiction, I guess, as much as the next person, but everyone knows why we're not getting another season of She-Hulk. Tatiana Maslany knows, Zeb Wells knows, Cody Ziegler knows, Jessica Gao knows, fucking Bob Iger knows, Kathleen Kennedy was probably figured it out at this point. Kevin Feige certainly knows that they created the show just to tell fans that they absolutely hated them. Now, this has led to speculation that we will see She-Hulk in other areas, perhaps in a Daredevil Born Again, since we saw Daredevil in the She-Hulk show. But I do not think that's going to happen. But there has been some speculation out there. One site said her own Disney Plus series may be dead, but She-Hulk could well find a new home in a place that may seem odd for MCU fans, but one that would make perfect sense to comic book readers, the Fantastic Four franchise. With Fantastic Four releasing in 2025, ahead of the MCU's own Avengers Secret Wars in 2027, the road ahead is surely paved for a version of this to play out on the screen. Ben could similarly elect to lead the team in the Secret Wars movie, thereby upping the stakes for Fantastic Four 2, as it would shockingly change the foursomes lineup. Just show a few scenes of She-Hulk becoming buddies with the Fantastic Four in the next two Avengers films, and that would neatly set her up to taking Ben's place in the sequel. Yes, because the MCU has been so successful at this point, it's been a goddamn gold mine. People are just so happy to have these female heroes that are absolutely being bastardized by the Marvel Studios system and thrown in there replacing male heroes. Yes, they're going to get rid of the heart and soul of the entire Fantastic Four fucking team and replace it with a character that they can't even make a Disney Plus show about. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, I do believe pre the Marvels, Kevin Feige would have been stupid enough to actually do something like what this man is talking about in that particular article, speculating where we could see She-Hulk in the future. And I do imagine she will make a cameo here and there in the back right corner of a movie or something like that. But I don't think we're ever going to see She-Hulk with more than a line or two ever again in the history of the MCU. The people behind the show were so overwhelmingly disrespectful to the fans that the character has literally become something that you could only lose money with at this point. And I do think Kevin Feige and Bob Iger and Marvel Studios learned their lesson after the Marvels. You actually can't put a bunch of stuff that people hate, put it all together and expect it to be successful again. I don't think that they're going to chance poisoning any more projects in the future with this character She-Hulk because of what Jessica Gao and Tatiana Maslany and your Zeb Wells and everyone else associated with that project, including Kevin Feige himself, have done to destroy the character. Basically, that character will lose you money for the foreseeable future, and I do believe that will continue after Secret Wars and they reboot and we get all of our heroes back. Absolutely ridiculous that they could make She-Hulk such a terrible character. Hell, the people behind She-Hulk trolled the fans so badly, even a website like Forbes.com had to admit what they had done. In an article titled She-Hulk is a direct, unapologetic attack on toxic Marvel fanboys. Now, if you take all the gobbledygook bullshit out of there, it actually says She-Hulk is a direct attack on Marvel fans, which is probably a much more truthful statement than what they've said there. They even admit She-Hulk was apparently conceived correctly, predicting its own backlash by a familiar group of toxic fanboys who exist in the comic book movie show space. While the show has had explicitly pro-feminist messaging from the first episode as Jen juggles the double standards for female superheroes, in episode 3, She-Hulk just goes directly at these kinds of toxic fans with an entire montage focused on a bunch of dudes saying they're too derivative of an emasculated Hulk or debating whether or not she was bangable. Now, not surprisingly, Forbes did try to spin that and say, yes, it was the fans that were the problem the whole time. But what I think Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios and everyone has been learning is the fans, in the end, are always right. They get to decide what ultimately is successful, what makes money and what doesn't make money. When you put out crap like She-Hulk, people lose faith in your product. They are less likely to spend money on your product. And you get shit like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania absolutely bombing at the box office. And then the Marvels setting an absolute new low as far as box office revenue when it comes to the MCU. Actually underperformed a movie that came out like 15 years before that, obviously with the Hulk that had set the other benchmark when the MCU wasn't even a thing at that point. That's how bad the Marvels did. And believe me, She-Hulk played a direct part into that. And the media did as well. They are willing accomplices going out there and attacking fans. That is never, ever going to be a good marketing strategy. You can blame it on whatever you want. You can say, oh, the budget was too big. We just couldn't afford another season of She-Hulk. But we all know what happened. Kevin Feige allowed the people associated with the show to attack the fans. And in the end, the fans were right. The show isn't worth picking up for a second season. The character is not worth moving forward in any capacity whatsoever. And She-Hulk is basically a dead brand, despite being a wonderful character that had a lot of history and amazing stories behind her, because they decided to forsake all that just so they could tell you and I what toxic assholes they really think we are. Well, guess what? I might be a toxic asshole, but I'm a toxic asshole with $15 extra in my pocket because I decided to spend money, and lots of people decided not to spend money on your stupid movies after you told us to go F ourselves. And I do think this is a wonderful tribute to Kevin Feige, Marvel Studios, and the entire brain trust behind She-Hulk, and deciding to make an entire season of television to tell your actual customers how much you hate them. And I absolutely love having this conversation, and I'm going to gloat about this just a little bit more this week on the Patreon when I talk to my good friend Aaron Sparrow. We do all the conversations about pop culture and all that stuff, and I know he's going to have some very choice words for the She-Hulk producers, Tatiana Maslany, as why they didn't actually decide to make a second season of this. But me personally, I am glowing in the victory because we showed these guys who's boss, and we will not be inundated with another season of that garbage. If you want to check out the Patreon, there's a link in the video description. We won, folks. Big winners right here.